What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Tyren Johnson podcast. I'm your host, Tyren Johnson, professional basketball player, currently playing in Weissenfels, Germany, in Germany's top basketball professional league. Today's topic, we're talking about emotional coaching. Is it powerful, hurtful, or both? I just recorded a whole 20-minute episode of this, and I did not hit the record button. So you guys are probably going to get a great episode because it's almost like I study this. Most of the time when I do these podcasts, I just kind of go off freestyle. But since I've done this already, I think this one's going to be a good episode. Emotional coaches, do they inspire, break players down, or both? I think both, because I think certain players need certain things. Some players need emotional coaches, some players don't. I think there's two types of players. I think there's self-motivated players, and I think there's players that need to be motivated. I don't think either or is right or wrong. It's just people have different personalities. I've heard players say that I need coaches to push me. I'm a player that don't need to be pushed. So I think that as a coach, you got to understand who you're dealing with. You got to understand, does this player needs me to push him, or does this player needs me to fall back and this player needs me to assist him? So I think that's the difference between a good coach and a bad coach. Is a coach that can tell that difference, because whenever you can tell that difference, you get the most out of the player. And that should be the main goal. How do I get the most out of this player so that we can be successful as a team? So the question is, how much is too much? How much is too much when it comes down to emotional coaching? I think when it starts getting disrespectful, when you start talking down to people, it's almost equivalent to when you're in a corporate America job and your CEO is talking to you like they're beneath you. A lot of coaches in Europe are more important than the players because the coaches sign multiple year deals, whereas the players typically sign a 1-year deal. And coaches become entitled a lot here. Whereas in America, the players are entitled. So for foreigners coming to Europe, sometimes it could be difficult because we're not used to being talked to like that. And there's many coaches in America that are very emotional, but you understand them, you know where they come from, you have cultural similarities. When you come here, you have no similarities to the coach. So it can get difficult sometimes. And I think whenever you start calling people stupid, or you start calling people dumb, or you start calling people stereotypes, especially being a black person, when a white person is telling you these type of things, that normally don't happen because that would normally turn to a fight. But since we're in a job, I can't fight you. I don't want to fight you when I see you in the streets, but I just know that you wouldn't speak to me like this if you wasn't the coach. So I'm just a guy, man. I treat the janitor how I would treat President Trump. That's just me. I'm one way. But that's my opinion on how much is too much. My experience dealing with emotional coaches is short. I didn't have many emotional coaches. I hate to say this, but it's just the honest truth. Most of my emotional coaches came from Eastern Europe. Most of the emotional coaches that I have seen were from Eastern Europe. Most of my coaches in Europe have been more relaxed, and they would work with you more than scream at you. So I won't name my coaches year after year and were they emotional or they weren't. But my first coach over here was American, Brad Dean, and he just talked to you. I remember he gave me a humbling session. I came to Belgium and I thought that I was the best player in the league. And I was kind of frustrated that my team wasn't passing me the ball. they kept passing the ball to some guy named Chris Copeland, who ended up being an NBA player. And I'm like, Coach, I need the rock. I'm averaging 13 points. This ain't gonna get me to the league. And he looked at me and said, Tyren, who do you think you are? Like, you think you like the LeBron of this league? And I was like, yes. And he was like, Ty, you're not close. And that humbled me so much because I seen that he wasn't trying to be ugly. He wasn't trying to shoot my confidence down. He was just telling me the truth because I had been misled to think that I can come to Belgium was one of the best leagues in the world at that time and just be one of the best players when we have a great player named Chris Copeland already. So that's coaching. Some coaches would have probably thought that I'm just arrogant, I'm stupid. I didn't know. I'm a rookie. I don't know. So instead of just cursing me out, he coached me. So that's been my experience, man. And my experience with dealing with emotional coaching is that I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. And it takes the joy out of the game. It's not fun. So what I do is I try to do my best to whereas me and that coach don't ever have to really speak. It's just I do my job, they do their job, and even if we win championships, even if we successful together, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean much because I don't feel a part of something whenever a person is speaking down to me or is treating me like I'm their kid. I would never stand for that. I never did stand for that because I led with respect. I didn't come over here to be disrespected. So that's just my opinion. It doesn't work for me. I don't think it's powerful at all. But I think some players need it because some players needs that push. It's just I'm not one of those players. When does it becomes toxic when a coach is speaking to you like this? I think it becomes toxic when the name calling starts, when you start calling the P word, when you start saying you're stupid, or when you start saying you're dumb, or when you start saying you're not a good player, when you start saying all of these different things like that, I think that becomes toxic. Even a player that wants to be motivated, I don't think that they like being spoken to like that. So I think it's a fine line of how to coach emotionally. I think there's power in it to motivate your team. But when you start degrading people, I think that's when it gets out of control. Because you got to understand there's many stereotypes in basketball. There's a stereotype that white guys are smart, black guys are dumb. There's a stereotype that white guys can shoot, black guys can't. There's a stereotype that white guys have IQ, black guys don't. They're just naturally talented. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my life. But that's the reality of the sport that I'm in. And whenever a coach is highlighting one of those stereotypes and you don't feel that way about yourself, you can lose a player. That's when it gets toxic because whenever you lose a player because of your emotions, now the team have to suffer because of your emotions as a coach or a player not being able to be emotionally intelligent. That sucks, man. Because we do all of these sprints, we do all of this lifting weights, all of this preparation, and something like emotions is it's a distraction for the game. So I think that's when it gets toxic, when it becomes degrading. So my advice to younger players on how to handle emotional coaching is there's a few things that you can do on how to handle this. This is the thing that I do, right? Be on time, know your assignments, give effort. Trust. Be on time. Try to show up 15 minutes early so that you don't have to deal with any type of backlash. Know your assignments. Study the scouting reports. Do your own scouting reports. I do my own scouting reports. Know the plays. Know where you're supposed to be. I forgot one. Communication. Be the loudest in the gym. It's showing that you're interested in being here. It's showing that you have energy. Even if you're a bad player, even if you're messing up, coaches respect a player that is invested into what we're trying to do as a team. So a lot of communication. And the last one is effort. Giving effort, man. Giving effort can get you on the court. When we're not rebounding, you coming in and you giving effort, you getting rebounds, you getting back on defense, you getting steals, you getting blocks. All of those things will help you with an emotional coach, because what happens is the coach stops speaking to you. And when you're dealing with emotional coaches and you're a self-motivated person, you don't really want the coach to speak to you. So you got to find ways to avoid them speaking to you. So you do all of these things so you don't have to speak to them. I'm doing my job. We're successful. I don't have to talk to you, because I don't respect most of these guys that's like this anyway. So I don't really want to speak to you anyway. But as a professional, I do my job and do what I have to do so that we can be successful as a team. And there's nothing bad in that. He has his way of communicating and operating. You have your way of communicating and operating. Not one's wrong, not one's right. You decided to come to Serbia and play. Nobody forced you. You decided to go to France and play for a coach that's emotional. Nobody forced you. This coach doesn't have to change because of you. You don't have to change because of the coach. And this is why the next piece of advice I'm giving is probably the most important piece of advice and one of the best things I've learned as a professional athlete. I learned how to make money outside of basketball. I'm doing this podcast. I do freelance work on the side. I have camps. I make beats. It's many other ways I make money, to whereas basketball is probably one of my smallest sources of income. So what happens is I'm not afraid to leave this. So if I get in a situation where a coach is talking to me a certain way that I don't like, I can leave. Right? You don't have to put up with this. But you got to have your money right. What happens is that take the pressure off. That way you can have a healthy mental health. Because all you get to do is play basketball and try to find some joy in the game. If you have to depend on this coach, and this coach is controlling your next job opportunity, if this coach is controlling your playing time and your mood, it's going to be a rocky road. But what you do is, when you got your money right and you don't need the coach, you can be honest with the coach. You can trust the coach. You don't have to be in bad moods. Your mental health don't have to suffer, because if it ever gets too tough or too degrading, I won't say too tough. If it's tough, that's cool. That builds character. Fight through the toughness. But whenever it becomes degrading, when you start being called stupid, dumb, ignorant, low IQ, racist remarks, you can leave. And I would say always put yourself in situations where you're able to leave. So in closing, do I think it's necessary for emotional coaching? From my point of view, no. Do I understand that is necessary sometimes? Yes. Sometimes your team need to be cursed out. Sometimes your team need a pep talk to get them going. Sometimes your team just does not have it. And I get that. But I think there's ways to communicate to get the most out of your players. And I think that when a player is not getting the message, it's probably something wrong with your coaching. I think that you should be emotionally intelligent. I think that you should have great communication skills. I think that you should have some empathy and knowledges of your players and different personalities. And I think that makes a great coach. And I think that way you don't have to be emotional. I think that makes you prepared. Now, you can be passionate. I get it. All of us passionate. I'm not saying don't be passionate, but emotional and degrading players, big no-no, waste of time. Do I think you can be passionate and sometimes speak in a passionate way? Yes, I get it. I get that. That's sports. That's what we signed up for. All personalities are different. Some guys are more docile. Some guys are more antsy. Some guys are more emotional. Some guys are more extra. I get that. I don't want to take that away from the game. But if you ask me, does emotional coaching is necessary? No. When I go to AAU games in the summer and I see 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds getting screamed at by a 25-year-old who doesn't truly even know the game of basketball and is coaching on the side as a hobby, I think that's toxic. When I hear a parent screaming from the stands, I think that's toxic. When I see referees trying to control the games, I think that's toxic. I just think all of this is toxic. I think that sports is beautiful. I think it's the one time we can come together where there's no politics, there's no race. It's just the love of the game, your team versus my team. Let's compete to win. And I think that's good. So that's my opinion. But if you had an experience with an emotional coach, put it down in the comment. Let us know. Let's see what your experience was from your perspective. I will definitely be interested in that. Besides that, please like, subscribe, share, and every day make them pay so that one day you can live a truth life. I'm out.